Good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates. Welcome to the announcement of commitment from countries on Articles of Agreement of GBFA. The event will be followed by a high-level roundtable on GBFA, refocusing planet finance. Let me introduce myself. My name is Patricia Rani, and I'm going to be your MC for today's event. We are really honored with the presence of prominent figures, including representatives from our GBFA Perspective founding members, as well as from the United Nations, alongside knowledge partner and OECD members who are committed to advancing planet finance for sustainable development. Please give us all here a round of applause. To formally open the proceedings, I would like to invite His Excellency Luhut B. Panjaitan, Coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs and Investment of the Republic of Indonesia, to deliver the welcoming remarks. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to His Excellency Luhut Binsar Panjaitan.
Excellencies, ministers and representatives from prospective founding member countries, and Ibu Professor Mari Elka Pangestu, Presidential Special Envoy for Global Blended Finance Alliance, distinguished partners, speakers, delegates, and ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. Sincerely, thank you for being here today, particularly for countries which support an interest to join in the G20 Bali Global Blended Finance Alliance. I also thank to all partners for we're always ready to assist the development of GBFA G20 Bali. I believe all of us here have a same spirit for the GBFA to close the financial gap for climate action and SDGs. Developing countries like Indonesia still face a financial system that fail to support their sustainability efforts, as highlighted by the US Secretary General, a system they had a hand in the creating a voice of shaping. Estimated the financial gap faced by the Global South is nearly $3 trillion annually, and concessional funds remain insufficient, particularly for developing countries. We recognize our problems to enhance climate action. I believe Global Blended Finance Alliance could be an important player in shaping a more inclusive and equitable financial system while supporting ongoing global reforms to the global financial architecture. Highly appreciated for the 8 countries as prospective founding members of who signed the letter of intent on the GBFA in May 2024 in Bali. We have good progress on the discussion of articles of agreement. Today is a historic as we reach consensus on AoA, but understand that the countries need more time to get approval by the internal process. We agreed to announce the commitment on articles of agreement today, which is once again, which is the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo Fiji, Republic of Indonesia, Kenya, Luxembourg, Sri Lanka, and the United Arab Emirates have held discussion and reached the consensus of the articles of the agreement for the AoA to establish the G20 Bali Global Blended Finance Alliance, or GBFA, a global institution acknowledged by the G20 Leaders Declaration, an initiative of Republic of Indonesia. These countries are committed to completing their respective internal access processes and agreed to sign the AoA to become a founding member of the GBFA in October and during the COP29 Azerbaijan for signing. The government of Indonesia and France have signed the letter of intent and allowed the discussion. Additional countries such as Papua New Guinea, Germany, Australia, and Singapore have expressed an interest to anticipate with the new international organization G20 Bali soon. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all contribution and support. We need to keep our spirit and strive to carry out our commitments into sustainable concrete action. Let's make the giant leap for the boat in the next meeting. The Trihita Karana Forum was the first knowledge partner sign around the Indonesia Sustainability Forum. Here is proposing with the blessing of Pope Francis and support of our President-elect, Trihita Karana Universal Reflection Journey on December 14. This international organization, unlike others, is premises with harmony, with spiritual at the top. It's not about faith, but open mind, open heart, and open will. Indonesia will always update the significant progress. The new government Indonesia is committed to continue in promoting blended finance initiative to attract private investment, sustainable project, particularly through the G20 Bali GBFA. I hope our efforts give big impacts for the global, particularly for the developing countries, to achieve their target in climate action and SDG. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand for the developing country, this GBFA is very, very important because this can be a platform to finance small, medium enterprises or small, medium activities in the developing countries. The problem in the developing countries also is how to finance. So we do hope this platform could help developing countries to raise funds with a very good interest rate. So this Global Blended Finance Alliance against the G20 Bali is very, very important platform, especially the South-South collaboration and also for the developing countries. I thank you to all of you for your supporting of this, and I do hope that this one day you can see the fruit of this important meeting today. As I mentioned earlier, this is historic. Maybe we don't believe going to happen someday, that one country, small country, developing countries could see the benefit of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, His Excellency Luhut Binsar Panjaitan, Coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs and Investment of the Republic of Indonesia. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to also invite His Excellency Sultan Al-Shamsi, Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs for Development and International Organizations Affairs, to kindly share his valuable remarks.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Excellency Vision Voy, thank you very much for organizing such very important meeting. And I was also the same room here attended last year, actually. We just started about this also, how we can come together. And now we have just signed the MOUs, and hopefully by next month will be an agreement also to sign the AoA for the Abidjan's COP29. I think it's very important initiatives, and we see it also to complement other really instruments that is done by other institutions. Totally agree with you. How we can focus on small and medium enterprises, small scales, medium scales that can bring together donors, private sector, different institutions. Also, I think is just only 25 years to come that will achieve the 2030 SDGs. We saw many countries that really failed to achieve their SDGs because different challenges, different crises, different priorities being changed after the corona. So I think it's also a path to support countries to achieve and support their SDGs by 2030. We have just witnessed a successful outcome of the Summit of the Futures. I think also one of the initiatives or instruments that also will come to support that. We are very committed and dedicated to work with you or with different partners. We can bring different scales from different partners, not only high-income countries, but also medium and small countries, low-income countries, together to establish such important initiatives. UAE has already, invested in many ways, actually, to support small island states, whether in the Pacific or the Caribbean, by funding $100 million there. The mangrove programs, the clean rivers programs that also combat the crisis of the climate change. And we look forward actually for successful initiatives or alliance to support also the outcome of the COP29 and COP30 in Brazil. We have really achieved, I think, successful COP28 in UAE. That I think also will try to what really lessons been learned during that summit or the meetings come also to align with this initiative. Thank you very much, Excellency.
Thank you so much, His Excellency Sultan Al-Shamsi, Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs for Development and International Organization Affairs, UAE. And next, I would like to invite Mr. Andreas Kahl, Director of Organization for Economic Cooperation Development, to also give his remarks.
Thanks so much, Madam Master of Ceremony, dear Minister, Luhut, Ibu Mari. It's such an honor, such a pleasure to be back to this important initiative, which we have been launching together in Bali, back to back with the G20 Leaders Summit. I want to compliment you, Luhut, Minister Luhut, for your leadership, your ministry, your team, together with my dear friend Ibu Sherry and also Ibu Nani, and you have been at the forefront of this initiative. And I think this is precisely what we need to make a difference in climate finance. I also want to thank my dear friend Hari Prabowo, with whom I have been working on the G20 presidency of Indonesia. This is a very, very particular year for Indonesia, because Indonesia has asked to become an OECD member, and this is something we have been launching the accession process. My Secretary General was visiting with your president-elect, who will be back to Jakarta for the next step in the accession process by the end of November. And we very much look forward. Indonesia is the first country in Southeast Asia, the largest economy in Southeast Asia, who has asked for membership in the OECD. And we are very glad that Indonesia has undertaken this step, and we might do our best efforts that this process will support reforms in Indonesia, will support your reform agenda, the reform agenda of the incoming government of President Prabowo, and we will we stand ready to make best use of Indonesia's inclusion. Over the past decade, we as OECD, we have been supporting this blended finance agenda. We have been early supporters, and I'm glad, Minister Luhut, that you quoted the Trihita Karana roadmap. And this is something which we have been supported when it was launched in 2018 in Bali. And we believe that this is an additional institutional framework help to mobilize additional commercial capital towards meeting the SDGs. Secondly, we are supporting this not only by the building of the alliance, but also providing the evidence base. We contributed to the report Scaling Up Blended Finance in Developing Countries, which provided evidence analysis to support meaningful discussion in the G20 under Indonesia's ambitious presidency. And we have taken, and this is my third point, supporting moving from words to action. So we have been delivering with you the G20 blended finance principles based on the OECD principles. The OECD Clean Energy Financing Investment Mobilization Program has launched blended finance guidance for clean energy in 2022 and is there to support the implementation of the blended finance in the context of clean energy transition through the Just Energy Transition Partnership, the GETP, which Indonesia is also undertaking. So we are making this a very practical step and not only a theoretical one. We believe that there is still more that must be done. The total amount of mobilized private finance reached only 62 billion US dollar in 2022, confirming the upward trend over the past decade, but largely driven by big multilateral banks. But it's clear that the financing we have currently in the books is not yet enough to meet the SDG financing gap. We need to be better, more strategic, use public money to make most bang for the buck, and to really leverage what we have in public money together with what we have in private money. That's the principle of blended finance. So for blended finance to live up to its potential, we need more action, stronger coordination with different instruments, best practices. We believe that we can build on the principles we have developed together, the accompanying guidance, as well as the G20 principles to scale up blended finance in developing countries, including least developed countries and small island developing states. So this could be also a target for the alliance to work in particular with the small island developing states. Knowledge sharing collaboration are at the heart of this Global Finance Alliance, which is why we very much support this initiative. So we have been actively engaged in this initiative and we will continue to do so to make it happen, to make it contribute from words, from principles to very concrete actions. Very pleased to have many colleagues from the industry around the table. I know that Paul Pullman and others have been championing this agenda. And this is precisely what we need in order to meet the challenge of climate change, of the SDGs. And you can count on the OECD to play a supporting cast. And thank you very much indeed. And big appreciation for your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Andreas Kal, for your participation and also appreciation for G20 Bali movement.
Did you want to come in also?
Yes, I will. Hi, my name is Dr. Rebekah Granger-Ellis. I am a neuroscientist, so you're probably wondering what that has anything to do with finance. But I actually work with the World Bank and UNICEF in the Western Balkans. So my specialty is adversity intelligence and how do we raise future generations with brains that are equipped and sustained to not repeat war and to have much more of a global mindset. And I have been honored to be here from the beginning and putting this initiative together. And what I'd like to actually do is just talk very quickly about why this is so important from an actual brain and body perspective. Because I think Elliot mentioned it and he said, you know, left brain, right brain. And I'm glad he's not here because I'm going to say that's not true. From a neuroscience perspective, you don't have a left brain and a right brain. It's all interconnected. And in fact, our brain actually only processes its world through emotions up to 3 seconds before you even have a cognitive thought. We are emotional beings. And I love what Maria is saying about co-creation because we actually do that as a species. One of our most powerful capabilities is our abilities of our brain to communicate with one another, it's quantum physics, vibrationally, without actually speaking. The number one thing in order for us to co-regulate is that we actually have to trust each other. If we produce oxytocin within a few minutes of sitting across from each other or next to one another, our heartbeats will match. Our breathing will synchronize. And if we're thinking aloud on our problem and you're looking at an MRI, our neural networks will fire together. The point is, if we understand that we are not siloed left brains, right brains, we're not separate beings of the universe. It's all vibrating particles. Your carbon, your nitrogen, your hydrogen, your oxygen, we're part of it all. And one of the things I love about Bali being the symbolic place of this is because as a people, they symbolize this. There is no separation between heart and mind and soul. There isn't in your brain. It's all the same. You use the same neural network to have a feeling and an emotion as you do to think. It's the exact same dendritic connection. It's the same neuron. The same neuron to speak is the same neuron to actually feel affection and emotion. It's the same. We're not separate. And we're not separate as a species either. And the power of us as a herd species is phenomenal. If we can co-create knowledge together and we can co-create a better world for ourselves. And so as you saw up here, we're about to have a day of reflection, which the Balinese do as a culture that we should all do. And I will say it as a neuroscientist, because that's one thing that we talk often about, that's actually the only way the brain can be innovative and creative. So our brain does not have a flashlight. It doesn't focus on things. That's a myth. Our brain is having so much data and it's inundated by hundreds of thousands of pieces of data we can't even measure, but our brain silences the data in order to make a story about its current situation. If we understand that the brain's natural process in order to create and think and innovate is it needs to quiet the noise. And when we quiet the noise and we actually get very quiet and still, that's when we co-create the best as a species. You'll hear people talk about it often in meditation or silence or prayer is where people co-regulate the most. You've seen people in religions. That's why. Because when we're together co-creating without the words, that's when our brain is actually accessing its highest prefrontal cortex capabilities. So the ability of our brain to innovate, to create, to have empathy, to take perspective, and the big one, which is foresight. We're all here talking about foresight, but the brain actually only has access to that capability when it is in a state of the parasympathetic. That means when it's calm and it's resting and it's feeling happy and peaceful. And I don't know about you, but most of the world is in the sympathetic almost 95% of the day. They are in a state of stress. Our brains can't access foresight. It can't access perspective taking. It can't access empathy. And if we want to change the world, we need to operate how we know we are our best as a species.
Thank you. So on that reflective note, I hope you will all reflect on all our discussions today and think about how we can build trust so that we can break down the silos and really co-create what should be our common future together.
And now we would like to invite Mr. Paul Pullman from the International Chamber of Commerce to provide an overview of blended finance.
I'm not sure if I'm doing the total overview, but Salamat Pagi. I literally sweat my way to this meeting, so I apologize. I've never run so fast to make it in time. So it's good to see Ibu Mari and Pak Luhut and all my friends around the table. It feels like I'm living in Indonesia because we were there a few days ago. In between, I've been to 10 other places in the world, but I still cherish the visit there. We had this sustainability summit in Jakarta, which I attend quite a lot of sustainability summits, but this one was so professional and of such high quality. And I'm not just saying that to flatter the people, but it was really focused on the huge potential and very practical and actionable. And about 5,000 people were there, but I tell you, they left feeling like 100,000 people ready to change the world. And that's what you want. And then We had an opportunity to be in Bali at the Africa-Indonesia Summit. What dawned on me actually there was, because for all these things, you have to do some research, you have to do some reading, you get some new knowledge, which is always beautiful to do. But you look at the combined economies of Africa and Indonesia, that's $4.8 trillion. You look at the combined trade between those countries, and it's, the numbers range between $6 to $15 billion. So 4.6 trillion, 4.8 trillion, and then $15 billion maximum of trade. That's a huge opportunity. So Africa getting to a free trade zone, Indonesia really unlocking itself with the leadership of Pak Luhut and others. It's just, for the making. When the rest of the world struggles and feels miserable and wonders how they can get growth, here you can have an opportunity to have responsible growth and lift people out of poverty. I think that the green transition, which we need, we don't have to argue that, the facts, and you probably heard them ad nauseum this week, but in working with Brazil now for the COP30, or in working with Indonesia, who has had an incredible host and the G20 and other things, it is really the opportunity to unlock, in my opinion, the middle income countries to actually position themselves very, very competitively for the future. You look at Indonesia, you look at Brazil, and it's probably the two biggest examples. 95% of the top 100 countries that really have the global solar potential. If you take one thing, it's in those parts of the world that we call emerging. If you look at the key transition materials that we need, it's 60, 70% is in those parts of the world. And I'm talking about things like copper, nickel, lithium, or cobalt. So these countries, then you look at the natural capital you basically find in those places in the world. So if there are countries better placed than anybody to lead this transition, to build in the added value and lift these populations out of a dear situation, economic situation, it is those countries. And it's not surprising to me that when you see those countries and you do study after study after study, you see that these transitions actually are accelerators to GDP growth. In Brazil, we just did a study, ecological transformation plan. You invest $150 billion a year, which needs to be done, but $150 billion a year unlocks $450 billion. We did the same studies with Bapenas did in Indonesia, and it shows that you have growth in the same year that you're starting to do these investments. So these are tremendous opportunities. So why aren't they happening? Because the same thing for companies, and I say it this week to company after company after company, companies that responsibly lead on these green transitions are actually also more profitable and are better valued by the market. If you hear people trying to talk that down, or it's not happening, or people are rolling back, look at their noses. They're probably growing them like Pinocchio. It is happening, but there's an interest of some people in society to give the impression that it is not. But we're accelerating everywhere. And obviously, when we leapfrog, we see the benefits. The only thing that is missing, in my opinion, and that's why this meeting is so important, is the collective willpower of all of us. Do we make it work? We have the technologies. We have the funds globally available. This world has more money than it knows what to deal with. We just have to channel it to the right parts. And that's a matter of seeing these opportunities. Many people just don't take the time or the interest to find out where they are. Helen Keller, who worked for the Perkins School of the Blind, she was deaf and blind, spoke 6, 7 languages. And she would give speeches and people would say, wow, that's amazing. And she would say, just stamp your feet on the ground so I can feel the vibrations. But after all her speeches, people would come up to her and they would say, it must be horrible to be blind. And her answer was always the same. The worst thing is not being blind. The worst thing is having eyes and not being able to see. And that's probably what the problem is in this world. There are too many people that have eyes, but they're not able to see. So here is this enormous opportunity. We need $2.4 trillion to unlock in these emerging markets, $2.4 trillion. About 1 trillion can automatically come from the private sector, $1.5 trillion, because it already makes economic sense with the technologies, et cetera. And that's obviously entirely on green growth, on things like grid expansion. And if these countries take the lead, they can create, I believe, the competitive advantage. The good example of that is China. In this country, some people might not like that or not, but where are the technologies of batteries? Where are the electric vehicles? When you have a country like that, 50% electric vehicles, you produce them cheaper, you produce them more efficiently, more likely you will have the more patents. And you're starting to conquer the world. The same with the battery technology, the same with solar. Indonesia certainly has that potential and the scale, and I think other parts of the world as well. And we need to unlock that. So where's the challenge? The challenge to me is staggering because I looked at some numbers, but low income countries or middle income countries, if you are to, is only attracting 7% of the clean energy investments or capital, despite 70% of the population. The 90% increase that we've seen in clean energy investments since 2021 were in the developed countries and China, but not in any rest of the world. So there is a blind spot, I think. In fact, if you look at financing in many of these countries, it actually fell. So we know some of these challenges that are always being rehashed, the high cost of capital, or local markets are too small, or there's no financial market, or limited product pipeline, or limited availability of catalytic capital, or policy decisions that go in the wrong direction. It's always easy to come with these excuses because then you don't have to do anything and let someone else explain it. But the reality is, if you look at all of those, I think they can be attacked very quickly. And if there's one country that has attacked it, that has given us the way to do that, it's actually Indonesia. That's why I'm so enthusiastic about it. With Mary's leadership and Pak Luhut's obviously pushing this like you wouldn't believe it. If there is a man who wants to be sure that opportunities get and visions get translated into action, it's Pak Luhut, you know, and Sherry Nursalim and others. You've created the Global Blended Finance Alliance in Bali, and that's why we were there. But you know, what makes it so exciting is that there are real concrete actions behind it that show it's possible. If you look at the Blue Halo Ash, which is the global fund for coral reefs together, or the Green Climate Fund, or you look at the pioneering on the energy transition mechanism, or you look at the SDG Indonesia 1, or you look at some of the things that are now happening in converting coal to green energy. Lots of that is based on the premise of blended financing. And that's really why it is probably the best place to put the global institution that we're talking about. On the fact that 8 countries already have signed up now, which it's obviously very well received. I've personally talked to many other countries. I was talking yesterday with the US with John Podesta. He's interested to look at it and wants to see what they can do to help, you know, subject to the outcome of something happening in this country in a few weeks' time. But the interest is broadly there. I talked to Mohammed Yunus from Bangladesh. I mean, this is a unique opportunity for those countries to start to unlock this, and Indonesia does that with discipline. You know, it's a country of unity and diversity, and Pak Luhut was referring to December 14th, which is a national day of, I think, of prayer, whatever your religions are, you know, wherever you believe in, there's one thing that we all have in common, which is actually the golden rule: do unto others as you like to have done unto yourselves. Here, we've been very selfish, to be honest, in Europe, the US, what we call conveniently the developed parts of the world. We've seen that by a lack of commitment to the Green Climate Fund. We've seen that on a lack of commitment on vaccines. We see it, frankly, in a lack of commitment on helping with debt relief. It's a scandal. The Pact of the Future tries to address that a little bit, but it's a scandal. There's no other words for it. We first and foremost are citizens of planet Earth. All the issues that we need to address are interlinked. If we don't start to rise to that challenge and see that we need to help each and everybody and get back to the roots of the Sustainable Development Goals of not leaving anybody behind. If we are not able to provide dignity and respect for everybody, equity, a certain level of compassion, this world is not going to function. And one of the reasons you see all these stress points is that we are indeed having eyes and are not able to see. So I would encourage everybody, I would nearly dictate to everybody, be part of this and make it work. And if you can't make it work, you're probably not working hard enough to make it. It's as simple as that. I quoted the president, Joko Widodo, who said, kunci sukses adalah kerja keras dan disiplin, which basically means in Bahasa, the key to success is hard work and discipline. Normally, I would have done this whole speech in Bahasa, but I know some of you don't understand it. So I'll just limit it to my final comment here. But the key to success is hard work and discipline. And what we simply ask from all of us that are fortunate to do that we can count on your support here as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Paul Pullman from International Chamber of Commerce. We big agree that kunci sukses adalah kerja keras dan juga disiplin. And now we're going to move on. We would like also to invite Mr. Jeffrey Sachs, President, UN Sustainable Development Solutions Networks, to also give his short remarks.
Thank you very much. What a delight to be at this happy occasion. It's involved a tremendous amount of work by many people around the table, especially Minister Lahoud and Sherry Nursalim, who have brought all of this along for many, many years. And we cannot think of a more timely and worthwhile enterprise. Earlier this week, the UN member states adopted the Pact for the Future, and the Pact for the Future emphasizes the need for a fundamental overhaul of the global financial architecture. And what we're doing today is a very big part of that. The basic point is that most of the developing world does not have access to affordable capital. I was just looking at the Moody's ratings as of yesterday morning. There are only 13 countries in the developing world listed with investment grade credit ratings right now. 11 of them are upper middle income countries like Indonesia, China, and others. There are only 2 lower middle income countries that I find on the list. I may have overlooked something, but only 2 that I find, which are India and the Philippines. There are no low income countries at all that have an investment grade. So the world's just absolutely divided. Now, mind you, I think these credit ratings are analytically completely wrong, backward looking, poorly designed, inappropriate for the world we have. So I'm going to be spending my time in the next months trying to have a little workshop here in the city with the credit rating agencies so that they learn some development economics. Because poorer countries have very high growth prospects. If you are poor in the credit ratings, you are given a low score mechanically. If you are a small country, you're given a low score. This is just not good economics. Good economics is forward-looking and understands that a national strategy, if it delivers growth, also delivers investment-grade creditworthiness. Well, be that as it may, we know we're going to need new forms of implementation, and blended finance will be critical. We've got a lot of creative work to do in the years ahead. We know that we are in the midst of the energy transition already. We see it in the data with hundreds of billions of dollars being invested, but we also know that it's overwhelmingly in the high income countries plus China. And it's for a good reason. This is capital intensive investment. You can't have an energy transition without access to affordable capital, long-term and low interest rates and investment grade. Period. So this is really our challenge. The diplomats are very nice at goals, but they're not very good at practicalities. So they give us lots of goals, and then it's our job to help figure them out. And I'm glad that Indonesia will have the lead in this. So congratulations on the new Global Blended Finance Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jeffrey Sachs, for your great remarks. And now we will witness the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding with the following GBFA knowledge partner. So we would like to invite to come in front with me here. The first one is Ms. Nani Hendiarti as a Deputy Coordinating Minister for Environmental and Forestry Management. And also we would like to invite Ms. Suhaila Fabia Hakim, Country Director of Indonesia, Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, TBI. And also, we would like to invite Miss Claire van der Veren, UNDP resident representative in New York. And this signing will be witnessed by His Excellency Luhut Binsar Panjaitan, Coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs and Investment of the Republic of Indonesia, and also Her Excellency Mari Elka Pangestu, Special Envoy on Climate Finance and GBFA. On count to three. 1, 2, 3. Please give us a round of applause. We're going to take the photo sessions. Now, I would like to invite to join the committee in front here. The first one, I would like to invite the photo session here first, okay? 1, 2, 3. Once again, 1, 2, 3. And now I would like to invite to join with them His Excellency Sultan Al Shamsi from UAE and also Professor Joseph Malesi from Congo. And also we would like to signing them from UNDP first. Okay. Now, please stay. We're going to take another photo session. We would like to invite to join on the stage Mr. Jeffrey Sachs and also Mr. Paul Pullman to please come and join to do the photo session. Or we're going to invite the representative. The representative from UN Sustainable Development Solution Network. And also OECD, please, to join to come on stage to do the photo sessions. 1, 2, 3. Give us a round of applause for the announcement of commitment from countries on Articles of Agreement on GBFA. And now we're going to move to the high-level roundtable discussion on the topic GBFA, an innovative blended finance framework towards sustainable development. Let us begin with a short video on the G20 Bali GBFA.
The world is at a crossroads. The urgency of addressing climate change and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals is evident. While governments, organizations and communities strive to make an impact, the scale of financing required to drive substantive change is vast. This is where the G20 Bali Global Blended Finance Alliance, GBFA, emerges as a beacon of hope. It is a moment of pride and validation to highlight that both the G20 principle of blended finance and the establishment of the G20 Bali Global Blended Finance Alliance was unanimously acknowledged in the G20 Bali Leaders Declaration.
We celebrated the prospective founding members joining us. So I want to recognize and thank the country members, UAE, Fiji, France, Sri Lanka, DRC, Kenya, Luxembourg, and Canada for being the prospective members. Some of you are represented here today, and I would also like to thank our partners, OECD, World Bank, IFC, and ADB, and many others. And of course, this was a government of Indonesia effort. And I really feel full of hope, making the impossible possible, right? Everybody, because it's complicated. Yes, it's complicated. Otherwise, it would have been scaled up and done many years ago. But it is complicated. That's why we can't just talk about collaboration in just talking about it. We really have to collaborate. And not collaborate for our own interests, but collaborate for the collective interests of making sure that we can scale up finance for SDGs and finance, and making sure we integrate climate and development, making sure we don't just address what is commercially viable, but we address the last mile. We address the just and affordable transition, which is so difficult for developing countries. And this is what GBFA is all about. Helping countries, facilitating countries, capacity building, South-South cooperation, and most importantly, I think Pak Luhut mentioned it in his speech, we have to do concrete things. It's not just about collaboration and working together. It's about co-creating it together. And this is really what we want Global Better Finance Alliance to be about. This place that we are here today is also the support of the government of Indonesia, because this is part of the state-owned enterprise, Sanur Special Economic Zone, part of the Bali Beach complex.
When future generations look back, they will remember the leaders and nations who stood tall during this pivotal period and worked together towards achieving a brighter, more sustainable world.
Give us a round of applause for the video. I'm sure we all here hope that G20 Bali GBFL will going to give a big impact and also positive impact to all of us here and to the world. And now we want to give our warmest welcome to His Excellency Budi Gunadi Sadikin, Minister of Health of Republic of Indonesia. And we also like to invite His Excellency to give him short remarks.
Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the only reason why Pak Luhut asked me to sit here is because this Ministry of Health only have 3 years experience in healthcare sector and 30 years experience in banking sector. I just joking. I just joking. I don't really understand why the president put me in as health minister during almost at the peak of COVID in end of 2022. But ladies and gentlemen, yesterday with Cherry, I just being informed by her that I actually implementing blended finance. The reason is because the last APEC meeting in San Francisco, the US government are pushing the elimination of cervical cancer program under the Project Moonshot from the White House. And my friend, Secretary Becerra, asked me, Budi, can you help? You know, getting all the country to support the US initiative. So I told Becerra, yes, I will, but give me resources. So Becerra gave me a full team of consultants to create the Indonesian 15 years national strategy on cervical cancer eliminations. Basically, it consists of vaccinations of women aged 12 13, second phase 15 16, third phase 21, and then the boys. And also the second group of actions is to do a massive screening, HPV DNA screening for 60 million Indonesians. And why cervical cancer is important in Indonesia? Because this is number 2 killers in Indonesian women death of non-communicable diseases. So more than 60 million women die every year, or more than 100, 150 every day. With that reason, I said, why 15 years? Can we do it in 7 years by 2030? Because every day, if we are late, then 150 women, Indonesian women die. So then we push everything, and then we can compress with a very aggressive target to finish the screening 62 million and the vaccination 58 million in 7 years. The issue is I had got already the approval from Ministry of Finance for 4.1 billion budget for 15 years. Now I squeeze it to 7 years. So, and we can only allocate 3.1 billion, so lack of 1 billion. That's why I work then with an organization called WEN, Women Whatever Healthcare Health Network Empowerment. And then this group of people said, Budi, you can do blended finance. So instead of using all of them government money, we can get private investor to coming in, maybe the vaccine manufacturers to contribute some, and then we can leverage pay the interest of the development bank's loan, so you don't have to pay the interest. So then they are working on it, and yesterday the committed numbers is 100 million, which is pretty good. At least I got 10% of what the additional requirement is. So that's why then Ibu Sari asked me, Budi Wajon, you said this, a blended finance, not only in ideas, but already in executions in the healthcare sector, which is, I just want to report this in front of Pak Luhut that, with the help of Sherry, we have done it. The last thing that I would like to share with you, I know most of you are finance people. I used to be a finance people. This is what I'd like to share with you. I'm helping my fellow Peter Sapp, ex the CEO of Standard Chartered Bank globally, now is the head of Global Fund. I used to be the CEO of the largest bank in the country, to raise 16 billion fund to save 50 million lives for tuberculosis, HIV, and malaria. Global Fund. During the fundraise, Peter asked me to give a speech. And I remember I gave a speech because Peter said he will save 50 million lives. Me and Peter personally, as banker for 30 years, we have raised more than 1 trillion US dollar easily during our career. So much money, but we feel so little contributions to humanity. This time, we and Peter only raised 16 billion US, which is small amount of money compared for what we bankers used to be, but we save 50 million lives. It's so much great contribution to humanity. So for all of you that work in finance now, please consider to follow my steps and move to health, because the best wealth is health. Thank you.
Thank you so much, His Excellency Budi Gunadi Sadikin, Minister of Health of Republic of Indonesia. Now we're going to move our focus to His Excellency Luhut Binsar Panjaitan as a Coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs and Investment of the Republic of Indonesia to launch this book, Indonesian Just Transition White Paper.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, This is, I think, a very important moment because we're going to launch the Indonesia Just Transition White Paper, been prepared by my team quite some times, and very concrete things that we can do in this white paper. And number two, I'd like also to emphasize again about this global blended finance, G20 Bali. There are so many concrete projects right now in Indonesia could help unfortunate family. It's like a seaweed project. Seaweed also I like to link to the just transition energy because seaweed also could be a carbon sink and create job opportunity. So I mentioned about developing countries like Indonesia. 62% people of Indonesia live in the coastal area. And you can see a lot of stunting and poverty over there. Now we are government of Indonesia moving very fast on this. We have a plan on this. We establish collaboration with some other countries and do some research in Bali, northern part of Bali and Lombok. And we have pilot project 1,000 hectares. We're going to be 10,000 hectares. So this Global Blended Finance Alliance could help and finance to the small, medium enterprises in that area. So these are concrete things. We settle about, we help also about the climate change. At the same time, we also help the unfortunate family to have a better life because this seaweed, we can harvest every 35 days. So we can grow abalone, we can grow lobsters, and they can make good money. So for us, maybe in this room, this is not very important, but if you go to the ground, have a look over there, you see the problem, the real problem. They need the finance. They're not talking billions of dollars. They're talking maybe 1 million, 2 million, 3 million US dollars, but can be many, many family could enjoy this one. So again, ladies and gentlemen, this Global Blended Finance Alliance is very, very important for us. So we need your support. Not only support the government of Indonesia, but some other developing countries could enjoy also with this platform. So again, let me officially launch this white paper. This is what we call Indonesian Just Transition White Paper 2024. So you can see how serious government of Indonesia on this. So some people questioning us, about this. No, we are serious. Renewable energy program, I think we're going to launch at 62 gigawatt renewable energy by next administration, I think around November. So this is, I think, quite big, but at the same time, we are touching also the small thing. Like I mentioned about the seaweed, something like this, and mangrove. I think collaboration with the UAE right now is very beautiful. We'd like to invite any other countries also to be part of this. Thank you very much for your all support. So again, I do hope to see you to the concrete action on this program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, His Excellency Luhut Bin Sarpanjaitan, for the launch of the book Indonesian Just Transition White Paper. And we all here agree that concrete action is very, very important. And now we would like to invite Her Excellency Alexia Tartotu as Assistant Secretary from U.S. Department of Treasury to give her remarks.
Thank you so much. And it's really great to be here. It feels like being with the family, seeing Pak Luhut, Ibu Mari, Ibu Nani, Pak Rahmat. And of course, also Sherry. Really wonderful to be with all of you. Congratulations, first of all, on this launch. Very proud to see you achieve this step. We're, of course, in New York during UNGA week, and so there's a lot of conversation about being off track, the Sustainable Development Goals, and therefore a lot of conversation about the financing that will be needed to get on track and to get on track with urgency. But we all know that when we talk about financing, there's not this magical single pot of money that's available. There are different types of financing that are available that we need to match to different types of investment needs. And the power of blending, which is what we're talking about here today, is that 1 + 1 can equal much more than 2. We can get leverages that go to 4 to 10, 20. I've even seen 60. And that's the kind of smart thinking that we need if there is a chance of raising the type, quality, and amount of financing we need to make sure that countries have the energy to power the economy, but also to run the hospitals so that we can have health as wealth, to run educational systems where youth can have the knowledge and skills for a better future, to have better human conditions in Indonesia and around the world. And so, as always, Indonesia, you're leading us, you're showing us the path. The United States is very pleased to be at this table with you on this day of this launch. So congratulations again. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Her Excellency Alexia Latortu, Assistant Secretary, U.S. Department of Treasury, for your amazing remarks. And now, the high-level roundtable discussion on GBFA, an innovative blended finance framework towards sustainable development, is intended to be a forum to highlight the development of blended finance across countries, how each country is to address the financing gap to achieve sustainable development goals, what is needed to mobilize private capital to the scale needed, and the development of GBFA as a country-led blended finance platform. And now, it is my pleasure to invite our esteemed moderator to the stage to guide us through the next segment of our program, Her Excellency Mari Elka Pangestu as Special Envoy on Climate Finance and GBFA.
Thank you. And thank you, Minister Luhut, Minister Budi Sadikin, for being here on this important day where we can be announcing the process is almost there to finish the articles of agreement to create the international organization. I must say that I feel very excited today. It's been quite an intensive process. Professor Malasi was there during the negotiations. Since we had the 9 countries sign the LOI in May at the World Water Forum till September, which is 4 months, we have been intensively negotiating and discussing what do we want to do with the international organization that we want to create. And it is about addressing the financing gap that all of you have talked about. The 2.4 trillion is just for climate, by the way. If you want to talk about SDGs, it's actually 6 trillion. So the gap is huge. And I'm not sure these numbers are totally updated, but the number that we always refer to, and I'm looking at Lalita here from the World Bank, they always say $1 of concessional capital is mobilizing less than $1 of private capital, because this is the big challenge we have, right? How do you mobilize private capital? And, you know, in the last few days, I've been here in the UNGA. There was actually a lot of discussion on blended finance, you know, but it's not a magic bullet, as we know. It is, but everybody's looking at blended finance. And a number that I heard yesterday from, I think his name is Mark from the Pension Fund of Canada, he said that this has been the best year for blended finance in emerging markets. But guess what? Best year is only $18 billion. So big progress in 5 years, but it's still tiny. And the other problem with blended finance in emerging countries is the ticket size. They tend to be very small. And he said only 3 out of those 18 billion is greater than 1 billion. So, and in other words, the challenge is still there. The systemic barriers that developing countries face. When Jeff had a big point there about credit rating agencies. So it is about risk, right? The higher perception or reality of the risks facing emerging markets, which means high capital cost, which hinders the private sector interest, and the absence of policy and regulatory frameworks, human capital and knowledge gap. I was at the launch of the global, what is it called again? Global Coalition for Capacity Building, launched by Bloomberg, where this is one of the, you know, we are members of that too. So we do this, GBFA will need to do work with lots of partners. And the focus of that coalition is on human capital and knowledge gap. And then the lack of climate finance data and standards. And the fact that developing countries just have a limited fiscal space. We just heard a number from Pak Budi for his program of cervical cancer. Government has 3 billion, but you still need 1 billion. I mean, Sri Mulyani has been saying we need 278 billion. Government can only provide 30% of that. The rest has to come from from concessional financing and private capital. So next slide, please. I think, Alexia, you provided a very good summary. How blended finance is really about how do you put together the different sources of financing with different risks and return expectations or parameters with the investment needs, which also have different risks and return. Putting that together is really what blended finance is all about. And the governments come in with the fiscal space, but governments is also very important that governments also provide the policy framework and the pipeline of projects. We keep on hearing this conversation over and over again. Here's the money, where's the projects? And then we as developing countries, yeah, Pak Luhut is very fond of saying this. We are doing our best to design our policies and frameworks. Here's our projects. Where's the money, right? So we're like this. And this is really what we would like to be able to address in this Global Blended Finance Alliance. Next slide, please. This is really what we're all about in short. And we really want to be able to mobilize blended finance, especially for developing countries. I think this is what we feel is the value added of the GBFA, is its focus on developing countries. I mean, blended finance is not something new, but focusing the issues that are faced by developing countries and enabling the Global South to mobilize blended finance to be able to address those financing gaps and to learn from each other. Actually, the South-South cooperation, collaboration, sharing of knowledge is also an important part. So the three main things that we would like to be able to do, of course, with all of your support and partnerships, we start with what we call the country-led platforms. I don't really want to use the word platform just because it sounds so World Bankish. Sorry, Lalita, but yeah, as a former World Bank. But I think maybe we cannot escape using that word, but you know what I mean. It has to be country-led. The key word is country-led. And I would add country-owned. It has to be designed by the country as to what are our priorities, both on SDG and the climate action, right? It can't be everything. It can't be the 17 SDGs. We have to prioritize. And within that priority, how do we design the policies and the regulations and the frameworks? And how does that translate into the investment needs? And then the portfolio of projects. That's really kind of how we must think through how developing countries need to think through this. And Indonesia has been trying at least on the energy transition, but as Pak Luhut said, it has to be broader than energy transition. Energy transition is going to be a key part of the mitigation, but we have the adaptation and the resilience, which is all the nature-based solutions, such as mangroves, such as seaweed, such as the coral reefs. These are all potential projects and investment needs, which will lead to 1+1 being greater than 2, as Alexia pointed out. And there needs to be a lot of institutional capacity building. The institutions that need to deliver this, lots of discussion here on carbon markets. I think I've spent 2 or 3 days just listening to lots of issues on carbon markets, just because carbon is also a source of revenue financing that can help to have the financing gap. And then the last one is very important. This is what we're all about. It's the convening and the partnerships. Because how do you avoid this, as I was talking about earlier? And there was a whole day conference in Colombia the other day. Colombia, you were supposed to be there, but I think you sent somebody else. I don't know. But anyway, the conclusion of that conversation was, hey, we've been there before. We've seen this movie before, talking about blended finance. Why isn't it happening? Like everybody's asking that question. And the conclusion was that we are talking to each other. We talk about collaboration, but then that's it. We don't actually listen enough to understand what each other can do and how you can combine it so that it becomes blended finance. It's silos everywhere. So how can we really listen and talk to each other, truly talk to each other, collaborate? And I'm always say this word, it's not just enough to collaborate. You have to co-create. You've got to co-create the new business models that work for developing countries and start structuring the projects and then learn from each other. That's why at yesterday's event, they launched 13 case studies. I think it was the ILN and the Canadian Pension Fund. They launched 13 case studies. One of them is one of ours, is on the SDG 1 fund, which is how what our government has raised money, SDG linked bonds. So 13 case studies on blended finance. This is what we need to do. We need more to be able to find replicable projects, as well as how it's structured in the developing country context, so that we can have 1+1 being greater than 2. So that's enough from me as by way of introduction to remind you why GBFA, what is GBFA trying to do? And now I really want to open up for discussion. There's questions for discussion. What I have 4 questions, and all of you can pick and choose. You can answer all 4 if you like, or any one of the 4. What do you see as the role of your country or organization in the development of GBFA as a blended finance platform? Secondly, how are countries addressing the financing gap to achieve sustainable development goals? Are there good progress or are there challenges? Third, what are the innovative established financing mechanisms to develop blended finance across countries? I think financial instruments, innovative financial instruments and structures would be what we're looking for. And finally, what is needed to mobilize private capital to the scale needed? So if for those of you from the private sector, we hope you can contribute to that discussion. So let me now open it up for all of you to contribute to this discussion. I know some of you, this is UNGA week. I know there's going to be a lot of people coming in and out. And I recognize that you have other meetings to go to. So I really, really thank you all for those of you who have come. And if you have to leave early, we fully understand. But let me now open it up for discussion. Thank you, Alexia, for making the time to come and at least share some of your limited time with us. Okay, let me open it up. Anybody, if you want to speak, just put your card like this. Okay, Professor Malasi, and then Lalita.
Thank you very much, Excellency. I would really like to, on behalf of the DRC, would like to thank and highly convey the leadership of Baluhut in this specific matter, and also your dynamism. You have been very energetic into this long journey that is starting, and the DRC is very, very supportive, and I've decided to side with you in this initiative. I won't be long. I would like just to say the humankind, we have had so many challenges, so many threats in the past. I mean, the past centuries, the past millennials. And what have helped our race to survive is our capability of coming together whenever there was a threat that concerned all of us. And what this initiative represents for us, DRC, is the natural reflex of human to come together. And we are sure that if we can be together, stand more together, and try to gather all just like the main idea of the Global Blended Finance Alliance says, to put together all that can be put on the table for this, for the challenges that we have, we are definitely going to be successful. And concerning your 4 questions, I would say we in the Congo Basin, yes, we have general challenges. As you know, we have had the time to elaborate on the text of the AoA. I won't go back to that, but I want to say that we are more and more conscious that finances will never be available as much as needed. And existentially speaking, our people and our nature is a threat. So we have started developing more internal process. For instance, internal, I want to put it a word there that may not be appropriate, but let me put it for the sake of making myself understood. We are going to tax the emissions within our system. Yeah, so that we may have some resources domestically available to recycle into climate change adaptation and climate change mitigation and research and all that we need to make sure that we have the minimum from our internal system and also support alliance, support all this initiative in which we are. Thank you very much for your.
Thank you, Professor Masi, and thank you for your support and participation in all our discussions.
Exactly, yeah.
Lalita.
Thank you, Mari. I'll try to make an effort not to use the word platform. Although sounding like the World Bank is not a bad thing. But seriously, thank you very much for the invitation to this discussion. Unfortunately, Anna Bearday couldn't make it. So on her behalf, I'd like to thank you, Mari, and the government of Indonesia for helping shape and galvanize support for blended finance through this alliance. The alliance, in our view, can be a good way to bring together governments, development partners, financial institutions, and the private sector on impactful projects. And it's good to have this as an overall part of the overall efforts on blended finance. It's interesting to note that despite the fact that we all agree it's necessary, especially in energy transition, it's only 2% of overall development assistance goes towards blended finance projects. So it's very interesting that although we all agree that it's important, it's not a big share of ODA that goes towards this. So scaling up blended finance would be very important to create conditions for low carbon solutions, making them more competitive than the subsidized high carbon alternatives that exist in many countries. Our president, Ajay Banga, has frequently expressed support for reimagined partnerships. And I think this alliance is a part of that. And we are very happy to be here participating in this roundtable. Now, if you think about private capital, obviously that's needed, but it only cares about the risk return profile. But blended finance can be catalytic, but I think it would work only if it's not a substitute for policy reforms, institutional reforms, and country-owned climate frameworks. It can help only to an extent, but you really need the other reforms to take place for this to be successful, these kinds of projects to be successful. Now, in the World Bank itself, there are several projects that are good examples of blended finance. The ones that come readily to mind are the Benban Solar Park project in Egypt, which has used this. And it's a very interesting project because it uses a very comprehensive approach. We use development policy loans or budget support loans to create the right regulatory framework, to make sure there are tariff reforms, and all the necessary conditions that need to be in place for making blended finance successful. And then what that project did was it attracted both private and public investment into solar powered projects. And it also used IFC and guarantees, which is, again, a very important thing to help de-risk private capital flowing into these countries. So another one that comes to mind readily is the Uzbekistan solar power project. which also does the same thing, where it was supported by Canada IFC Blended Climate Finance Program, where the guarantees came in to de-risk the environment for private sector to come in. So again, used judiciously and used well in the broader context of policy and institutional reforms, blended finance can be useful wherever there are market failures, and it helps overcome those. So I'll stop there. Happy to answer any other questions on the World Bank. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lalita. I just wonder whether you want to mention the role of the World Bank in the providing the catalytic concessional capital, as well as some of the innovative financial instruments that are coming on stream. I understand there's now a one-stop guarantee. Is that the right word for it? So, some of the innovations
Yeah.
that you have been.
See, now you're forcing me to use the word platform because because what we do have is what we call a one-stop shop or a platform for guarantees that we are offering. Now, previously, what used to happen was we had guarantees in different parts of the World Bank. IFC, IDA had its own, IBRD had its own, and MEGA had its own guarantee. So what our president did was to bring it all together in one place to get rid of any duplication. And so you can go and see exactly what kind of guarantees the World Bank offers. And so we are then able to, for the private sector to come in and ask for any of the other governments to ask for any of these guarantee products, which are actually very useful, at least from my experience, using them in a very judicious way to raise private capital. It's been quite catalytic. The World Bank is also coming up with some very interesting new novel products like originate to distribute, where you start with the World Bank coming in and getting the project over its initial period, which is the hardest. But once it's done, we try to distribute that, sell that loan off to the private sector, which can come in after the initial risks are taken on by us and the public and the government. We also have what's called a multi-layer FX multi-layer facility, where when foreign investors are facing difficulties going into a country because of exchange rate fluctuations, we could have this facility that kicks in that helps give the foreign investors some degree of comfort that these long gestation investment projects, if they run into exchange rate problems, then we could kick in and make up for that and make sure that that these projects don't run into problems of repayment and so on. So I think we have come up with some very excellent products at the insistence of our, at the request of our president. And we're happy to, we're still in the pilot phase trying to get countries interested in them. And so once that takes off, perhaps next time we meet, I'm happy to talk more about those. Thank you.
Thank you. That's good news on the foreign exchange, because foreign exchange risk keeps on coming up whenever we talk to the private sector. I see. I can't see. Oh, is that UNDP and Tony Blair, right? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting us to this important event. I think the magnitude, so my name is Claire van der Veren from the UNDP Asia Pacific Bureau here in New York. The magnitude of the financing gap for the SDGs and the challenge of equitable access to affordable finance have been mentioned this morning. UNDP is deeply committed to help mobilize new resources to close the SDG financing gap. The establishment of an innovative finance lab in Indonesia in 2018 and the creation of our sustainable finance hub here at headquarters in 2019 underscore this commitment. Our finance hub focuses on building robust institutions, promoting innovative finance solutions, and fostering strong partnership across public and private stakeholders to advance sustainable development globally. Indonesia has been at the forefront, and we have witnessed remarkable outcomes through innovative finance approaches. For example, the public offering of thematic bonds, such as green sukuk SDG bonds and blue bonds, that has successfully raised over 10 billion US dollars. The proceeds from these bonds have been allocated to social investment that have showed tangible results. And a few examples. For example, these proceeds have helped administer 30 million vaccine doses, award scholarships to nearly 11 million students, including 5 million girls, and the empowerment of girls and women is important in this scenario, and provided assistance to 3 million underprivileged families through social assistance programs. There is also good potential of impact in reducing CO2 emissions and thereby contributing to the green energy transition. UNDP has been honored to be a partner in this journey, collaborating with stakeholders across a wide range, including the private sector, to help design and implement innovative fiscal policies and financial instruments. We look forward to supporting the Global Blended Finance Alliance with strategic policy advice, capacity development, and technical assistance, with, as has been mentioned, a focus on building a pipeline and implementing projects that are designed for impact in line with the Alliance's vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all your support. From Tony Blair.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. So I think I would like to, from the Tony Blair Institute, we have presence in over 40 countries now, with the 20 countries is actually in Africa. And we've learned that there are two things that enable the sort of South-South cooperation to be workable at sort of like this kind of blended finance solution. One is that the technology, we believe technology can actually reduce significant investment costs on various energy and electricity projects. And second, I think I would like to highlight the point on the convening power by Ibu Mari, because I think in Tony Blair Institute, we believe that because of our proximities to the issues that are happening in the developing countries, we are actually able to design the right economics for the projects in the developing countries by sort of looking at how do we combine the commercial or industry development appetite into the needs on the energy sector. So with that, I think it's something that Ibu Mari, we can actually make use of the GBFA as the right platform for us to channel the needs from the private sector with the reducing the cost of the economics from the country in the South-South context. So those two things that we would like to contribute on this GBFA. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Please introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you to the government of Indonesia for convening all of us. My name is Lina Barrera. I'm representing Conservation International and also our partner, Konservasi Indonesia. We see blended finance approaches as an essential component to bringing a balance to protection and production of nature. What I mean by that is that maintaining a sustainable economy requires a healthy ecosystem, and that is achieved through protection efforts, but in turn, support sustainable management of resources and productive activities, as well as thriving communities. Currently, the contribution of the blue economy to Indonesia's GDP is about 3.6% per year. By 2045, we expect that contribution to be 12.45%. We want to make sure that this is sustained over the long term. So we see our role at Conservation International and Konservasi Indonesia as helping the GBFA provide ready-to-implement blended finance solutions that balance between protection and production. We have extensive experience in this space, and we're now applying that to approaches such as the Blue Halo S initiative, which Mr. Pullman mentioned earlier. The Blue Halo S initiative is a comprehensive blended finance mechanism that integrates sustainable fisheries and marine protection. The initiative has two portions. a grant-based mechanism that will pool and deploy domestic and international philanthropic grant-based funding and other prospective revenues. It's intended to contribute to the development of a national scale blueprint at the direction of the government of Indonesia, and the grants will be supported by the Green Climate Fund in the amount of $69.8 million US. Additionally, we're proposing a blue financing facility, a financial instrument designed to support sustainable marine and ocean-related projects, things like the establishment of marine protected areas, the development of sustainable fishing practices, implementation of coastal zone management plans, or investments in renewable energy projects related to the ocean. So an important element of making all of this work is often having seed funding or quick start funding to unlock opportunities. And we've been lucky to have that in the case of the Blue Halo. But in looking towards, for example, new opportunities in the region like the TFCCA Debt for Nature swap, which is really an incredible opportunity to protect Bird's Head and Sunda Barat seascapes, which are the epicenter of Indonesia's marine biodiversity. However, there's a fee associated with the swap and also a need for early program management support, a total of about $5 million US. So securing this early funding is needed to take full advantage of the opportunity, and having donors who can be flexible and act as anchors can unlock opportunities such as this Debt for Nature swap. So in short, we would say we need good designs that are ready to implement, and we need to provide benefits to both conservation and nature and productive activities that support communities. And we need de-risking donors that can bring other donors and investors on board early on. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for providing us a good example of on the nature-based solutions on protect, produce, and I would add prosper, 3 Ps. If I may ask Elliot Donnelly, I think you have to leave, but if you could provide us with a perspective from the private sector, I believe you are the roundtable chairman for the institutional investors.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And I appreciate the invitation today, and obviously very excited by the work that G20 and Indonesia has taken a leading role in this initiative, along with many of its partners, including Sherry Nursalim, who's a dear friend. I think I wear many hats. One is as an investor and a fiduciary. The other is I sit on the boards and lead different organizations, one of which is the Long-Term Investment Organization, which is a sister organization of the Institutional Investor Roundtable, which represents a number of the largest asset owners in the world. I also work with Dr. Ashby Monk and serving out in his advisory board at Stanford on the Long-Term Investing Initiative. I think that blended finance has been something I've been thinking about for a number of different years, and I've been very excited to try to find ways in which to bring these various siloed institutions together to kind of help to solve global problems, to release capital, to find mandates in which these long-term institutional investors who represent 140 trillion, the base of the capitalist system, can deploy their capital in ways that meets their fiduciary obligations. So I think the promise of blended finance is immense. I think the ways that we get from here to there are going to take some time and work, but I'm committed to working with the country of Indonesia, with Sherry and others, to try to find ways in which to kind of break down these silos, and would be happy to have further conversations, discussions about how we might be able to bring some of the institutions that I'm involved with, including philanthropic networks such as the Global Philanthropist Circle, also Forward Global, who represents 400 philanthropists and impact investors who give away $1 billion a year, to try to find ways in which we can work together to kind of solve these pressing and seemingly intractable problems. I think the only other point I would also say is that as we start to understand sort of left brain and logic models and frameworks, I think it's also important that we take advantage of some of the other knowledges that we have that are native to Indonesia, with some of the indigenous folks, some of the indigenous wisdom, some of the indigenous ways in which people have solved problems traditionally. I think these are also silos, and I think also trying to use what I would call right brain thinking and right brain approaches, which is often when you look in the world of finance and business and government, et cetera, everybody uses the left brains, create processes, frameworks, they write papers, but I think there's a huge amount of resources that is latent in kind of the right brain thinking, intuition, and other things. And so I know that may seem strange in a convening like this, but I do think it's a part of our I think, great assets that we have as a species. And I think if we're going to try to find a way through this, we need to look and leverage both. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Elliot. And I hope that we can continue to discuss how to de-silo, get everybody to have a better convening platform as well as partnerships, and to use Ajay Banga's word, reimagine, right? This is the time to reimagine and try to think about new structures, new business models that we can have to have both the development side as well as the impact investment side being satisfied. So I hope we can continue this discussion, because we really also need to know what are the investors looking for also. Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. I do have another meeting I have to run to, but I greatly appreciate being invited, and thank you for all the experts and for all the great work of this country and the other partners in making this happen. It's a wonderful and inspiring thing that you guys have done and are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elliot. Okay, I think you, is it from Canada? You from Canada? Yeah, please.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Sergio Capuccio, Director for Climate Finance in Global Affairs Canada. I'm still, I have 2 days experience with the Colombia's group, having the same table, the investors, practitioners, MDBs, and I'm still, I have a lot of respect for MDBs. They provide us with ready to invest projects. Canada being in the front line of blended finance for the last 4 years. Through our desk, we have the big funds, the GCF, the big big MDBs fund, but also of smaller projects managed by fund managers with local implementers. We are kind of also frustrated with the lack of engagement from private investors, and we are always looking for opportunities to find new solutions. So we bring it here into the table the technical capacity of having done these deals for the last 4 years. We've been successful on obviously deploying loans. That's the almost easy part. The space for guarantees and equity still has to be explored. In our experience, we lost the private investors when we don't address 3 main points. We start with the speech, emerging markets, they raise one eyebrow. They ask for who is the local implementer. Sometimes I don't want to sound it's not good with bad intention, but a consultant based in Europe is not going to provide the assurance, the comfort level to the investor to invest. And the third is what's the legal framework? What's the instrument? We try with MDBs to set trust funds and complex instruments, but the private investor wants to have it simple. So we need standardization, simple language, explaining what we want from the private investor, what's the risk return profile of the investments, and where they are going to sit in this legal framework. The language gets complicated. I don't want to take too much time, but is it the first loss? Is it a guarantee? What is the? It's a debt instrument. It's an equity instrument. So again, in short, I'm very glad to hear this initiative. I think it has the opportunity to solve the situation right now where still the private investors are staying on the sidelines. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very valuable input from the private sector perspective. Do we have any more? Anybody else who wants? Oh, are there people online? I didn't realize there were people online. Are there people on? Anybody online would like to make any intervention? I can't even see them. Where, how do you know who's online? Okay, here we go. Does anybody online want to come in and make any comments or intervention? I think we're close to the 10 o'clock, the end of the hour. So don't see nobody? Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm apologize. I didn't realize there were participants online. Thank you for those of you participating online. And I hope you were able to listen to all our discussions. So here, anybody here want to have any other interventions? If not, then we can close this session because I know everybody is very busy running around in this UN, what would you call it? I'm not going to use the word circus, but the UN series of meetings, running from one meeting to the other and trying to walk between meetings because of the traffic. So I just want to thank everybody for participating, for contributing to our roundtable. There will be many more discussions, obviously. So my three key takeaways, as well as sharing with you what comes next in terms of GBFA activities. We are going to be launching some knowledge and sharing and capacity building work, training and roundtables like this. And we are going to hopefully work with outfits like Convergence from Canada, which has been doing a lot of work on blended finance, and hopefully IFC from the World Bank Group, because they also have a lot of knowledge on blended finance in terms of more the operationalizing it in the project. So we will have a few work streams on this knowledge and capacity building and training. And then second, I think we will be doing what I was calling country platforms, working with countries. And hopefully this will come about. We are hopefully going to get funding or working with Rockefeller to do 3 case studies on energy transition. They are already working with South Africa and India, and we are going to be also doing one on Indonesia. And the idea is leading up into the South Africa G20 year, we can provide these as case studies in terms of how do you design the kind of green growth strategy for countries, and identifying therefore the investment needs, and hopefully it also then translates to portfolio of projects. So that's the idea that would be coming up moving forward. And we also want to work on the nature-based solutions part. And how do you have good design? How do you have protect, produce, and prosper, as we heard from CI? I mean, the ocean examples like Blue Halo S. The other one is forests. Because of Brazil G20 year, they are trying to launch the cooperation in the forest area. And Indonesia, I think it's Indonesia, Brazil, DRC, certainly the 3 main countries. And there's Malaysia, and I forget, there's 5 countries who will be working on this, and something will be launched at the G20 Brazil. But the work will then start from then to the COP in Brazil at the end of next year. And one of the knowledge partners is actually the World Bank. So this is another, we want to kind of go from, okay, idea, design, translate into projects that can be financed in a blended finance way that will have the outcome of climate growth, livelihoods, development. So I think this is the plan anyway. And finally, I'm glad all of you agreed that we are still in silos. So how do we reimagine our partnerships and the way we talk to each other and collaborate and co-create in a very more innovative way, and hopefully with a focus on developing countries and the potential there. We hope that we can really address some of the issues, including from hearing very much from the private sector about you mentioned the 3 issues. How do we address the risks? How do we localize? These things are very local in terms of the condition, but understanding that in a very clear way. And then, of course, the legal frameworks and institutions and instruments. So the private sector would like to come in, but they require certainty. They also want to know how to de-risk and reduce costs and so on. So it has to come together. So thank you so much. I'm not sure I did a good job summarizing our roundtable, but certainly enjoyed all your contributions. And this is an ongoing conversation. It doesn't end here, and we will be continuing to be in touch with all of you and hoping to engage with all of you in our future discussions, and hopefully going forward, we will start seeing some concrete deliverables and outcomes. Thank you so much once again. In conclusion, we're going to watch a video.
Pope Francis blessed a recycled copper cross to give blessing for Indonesia initiative in uniting in diversity, for people, planet, and partnership for peace and prosperity. The Balinese philosophy Tri Hita Karana, or 3 ways to happiness through the harmony of people, planet, and spiritual, is aligned with Pope Francis Laudato Si, Islam, Chinese, Hindu, Greek, and many indigenous religions and cultures. Serendipitously, it is perfectly aligned with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, into a happiness SDG pyramid with climate at its core. Pope Francis moved from the tunnel of friendship deep below, linking the Jakarta largest cathedral and mosque Istiqlal, to above ground, where he blessed mangrove saplings, alongside the recycled dove of happiness. This piece was lovingly carved by Kara Kara Bali Serangan village community. This was part of the Indonesia Sustainability Forum, where mangroves were taken across the archipelago, Java, Kalimantan, Sumatra, Papua, and Bali. The Muhammad bin Zayed Joko Widodo International Mangrove Research Center, in Kara Kara Bali Special Economic Zone, was where one of the Pope Francis blessed mangroves is also planted. A dove of happiness descended in Kara Kara Bali on the blessing ceremony of World Water Forum, on the eve of Pentecost Sunday that hosted the Tri Hita Karana World Economic Forum event on G20 Bali Global Blended Finance Alliance, preceding signing of the G20 GBFA Letter of Intent and launch of the G20 Bali Alliance Secretariat in the Sanur Special Economic Zone. At the United Nations on September 26, the historic AoA consensus with member countries and partners, signing of the new international organization, G20 Bali Global Blended Finance Alliance for Happiness and SDGs, will be held. Path to Happiness or SDGs need multi-stakeholders and sectors. Uniting in diversity is the motto of a country of diverse ethnic backgrounds, cultures, and religions. Tri Hita Karana Forum is co-organized by United in Diversity, International Chamber of Commerce, and UNSDSN, with partners OECD, the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, World Economic Forum, and many more. It is hosted by the Government of the Republic of Indonesia, with President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono and President Joko Widodo. Its United in Diversity founding was under the presidency of Megawati Soekarnoputri, with former presidents Gus Dur and Habibie blessings, symbolizing the unity in diversity spirit of a resilient nation. Tri Hita Karana Forum, as the first knowledge partner of the G20 Bali Global Blended Finance Alliance, will invite all to join in a Tri Hita Karana universal reflection journey, with blessings by future President Prabowo and Pope Francis on December 14th, to celebrate us as a people, diverse yet united in our common future, aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This gathering of our universal leadership is for the world to reflect together, and for all of us to navigate, with open minds, hearts, and wills, as new governments form globally, and the new global institution, G20 Bali Global Blended Finance Alliance, is born.
Thank you so much, Her Excellency Mariel Kapangestu, for moderating the discussion today. We really hope this discussion not stop in this room, but can convert into the real action to make the world a better place for all of us. So on behalf of the entire team, I wish you have a pleasant day, and we look forward to seeing you at our future discussion. Good day.
Greetings, Raul Herrera. I'll be very brief. It's been a real pleasure working with the Republic on this project that is, now the work begins as it is launched. The time for it is now. The idea of sustainable finance is pretty mainstream today when you consider the sums in blue bonds and green bonds and sustainable finance around the world. So the timing couldn't be better. And when you realize that the needs are also, extremely great post-COVID, post-economic high indebtedness around the world and alike. And, Jeff Sachs talked about, the limited number of countries that are, rated. This institution is going to looking across the global South and it responds, I guess, to my comments to the fourth question you asked, Ibu Mari, in the sense that looking at the micro needs on both sides. On the one side, in country, what does it require to be eligible for financing? What does it require to be rated? What is an enterprise team to launch a project for blended finance at the international scale? What are the skills needed, the teams? What is blended finance? How is it used? How can it be applied in a particular context? As well as the other, country platforms, country-led, and the knowledge base, standardization, et cetera. And on the other side of the equation is to raise the profile of projects that need financing that aren't currently being looked at by a lot of the private sector. And I spent years, 13 at the IDB Invest as general counsel for 8 and then at GCF. And there's a bit of a herd mentality with institutions. You identify that one project and everybody wants to be part of it. And yet so many other projects are being missed, as Ibu Madi mentioned. There's a mismatch there. And on the other side is to raise the profile of projects, raise the profile of talent and needs in the global South for purposes of being part of the required financing. So it's very exciting, and a lot of you around the table in the articles, there's a definition besides of a contributing member and a participating member, there's also a knowledge partner. And as we saw earlier today with the signings, we look forward to continuing to work with each of you from the organizations and the institutions that have thought leadership for which we can continue to benefit and to successfully stand the organization up and get to work. Thank you very much, Ibu Madi.
Yes, thank you, Raul. Raul is our legal advisor and has been spending sleepless nights getting this together. So special thanks to you, Raul.